Okay, okay. You ready? Ready or not? Here we go. Yeah. So we have come to verse number 4 already. So going very fast now, and which is good because we are kind of halfway through this retreat already. So we have only done 3 verses. So that's okay. So verse number 4, and so we have the following. To support one's mother and father, to cherish one's partner and children, and to have a job without stress. This is the greatest good fortune. So we all know that the idea of supporting one's parents is like an important Buddhist aspect of morality or living right. Yeah, but in Buddhism, obviously, it is much more than that. You also have the idea of cherishing or supporting your partner, your husband or wife, and your children. And that there's quite a few suttas about the various kinds of people one should support in various kind of ways. And to have a job without stress. Isn't that nice? Have you got a job without stress? I think many people here have very stressful jobs. Going from the questions you're asking in the evening, I kind of get this feeling that, wow, stress. So, but it's nice, the idea that, you know, a job without stress is actually a beneficial thing. It's something that we should look for. It's something that will help you to practice in the right way, will help you to support you in the Dhamma if you don't have any stress. Too much stress, it leads to problems, you know, all kind of problems arise from that. It makes it more difficult to live well, because when you're stressed, you lose your temper more easily and these kind of things. And so stress is a negative thing in our lives. And so, you know, sometimes if you have the right kind of attitude, you have a a job that is not so stressful, that is more simple, and it is not such a highfalutin job, but actually it is a job that is more compatible with the spiritual life. And so it depends on what your priorities are. And if your priorities are the spiritual path, which I recommend it should be, because that is the long-term, what leads to long-term happiness and overcoming of suffering, then you will choose a job which fits with that overall idea of developing the spiritual path. And I don't know what it's like in Malaysia, but in the kind of Western world, in Australia and in many other countries, government jobs are really good, because the government is not so demanding. Government, like a 9 to 4, you don't make so much money, but it's enough, Same in Malaysia, same everywhere. Everywhere is the same, Okay. So government job is good, and if you don't want a government job, then monastic job even better. These are the options you have, but it's not. It doesn't mean that stress is not always bad. Some people thrive on high pressure jobs, and they like that, and they enjoy that, and they do really well. It's not as if you have to have a very simple job. It's really up to you. But what you should look for is something that is compatible with the spiritual path. It doesn't mean you cannot be successful as a Buddhist in your work. Of course you can, but you should always put the spiritual qualities at the top of the hierarchy and make everything fit in under that. That is the important point. So know your priorities. That's the important point. And if a little bit of stress is good for you, then have some stress, but don't make it too much. Otherwise, you're going to burn out. You become very stupid and a very angry and irritable person otherwise. But let's look a little bit at these other things here, to supporting one's mother and father. There are some beautiful suttas about this. I'm going to look at it fairly quickly because I have dealt with these things before here at the BGF. But they are they are interesting suttas nevertheless, and I give you a different perspective on the idea of supporting your parents. Let's have a look at these suttas. So first of all is a little sutta here, recommended by the wise. Mendicants, 3 things are recommended by wise, true persons, or wise, superior people. What 3? Giving, going forth, taking care of your mother and father. These are the 3 things recommended by wise, superior people. Have you ever read this sutta before? No? Okay. I was surprised because, I find this sutta, sometimes I can't remember ever having read this before, and so I found it, I thought, wow, that's pretty amazing. Giving is one of the foundations of the spiritual path. You find this, we're going to look more at the idea of giving and generosity later on, but it's one of the really core or basic ideas of the spiritual path. You start often by generosity, and then the path is described in detail after that. So it's kind of really important. Going forth, without going forth, there wouldn't be any monks and nuns. So Buddhism kind of wouldn't be any Buddhism without monks and nuns, pretty much, because the Buddha was a monk. And so that's kind of really important in Buddhism. And then the third one is taking care of your parents. It's kind of strange three things. Looking after your mother and father may be important, but like going forth, it sounds, it's kind of extraordinary, isn't it? And I think what this shows you, it shows you the kind of different areas in which you can make a lot of good karma, or bad karma if you get it wrong. These are actually important in terms of how you develop your mind. And not looking after one's parents, or at least having a reasonable relationship with them, can be very detrimental to the spiritual life. This is what this means. And so we should all try to do more in that area if we can, because we can actually make tremendous good karma, which will then help us on the spiritual path and on the spiritual practice. Some people say, but I've always had a very difficult relationship with my parents, so what can I do? Well, if it's been very difficult, make it just a little bit better, right? Start where you are and move in the right direction. Some people have even had an abusive relationship. Okay, in that case, fair enough. I can see where you're coming from, but even then, you try to forgive a little bit. Try to move in the right direction, because as you do that, you are building up some qualities that are going to be very supportive. But this is an interesting thing, giving, going forth, and looking after mum and dad. It sounds like a strange combination of three things, but there's always a lesson in these things, a lesson why these things are put together in this way, why they form a group of three things. And I think that is the lesson, that these are important from a point of view of making establishing the foundations of the spiritual path. Anyway, let's just leave it at that. And now we're going to move on to suttas that talk in more detail about how to actually do this. How can we take care of our mother and father? But first of all, we have the little verses at the end. The virtuous recommend giving, harmlessness, restraint, and self-control, caring for mother and father, and peaceful spiritual practitioners. These are the things recommended by the good, which the wise should cultivate. A noble one having vision will enjoy a world of grace. Okay, don't know what he has translated here, but anyway. Sometimes no idea. But anyway, it sounds good, world of grace, okay. Siva, is it? Siva, okay. Siva is the same word as Shiva, the god, the Hindu god, same word. So the Shiva means like graceman, presumably, or something like that. Okay. Okay, so let's go on. So this now comes one of those suttas that are standard suttas about how you should deal with your parents, with the divinity. Anguttara Nikaya 3:31. Mendicants, a family where the children honor their parents in the home, is said to live with divinity. A family where the children honor the parents in the home is said to live with their first tutors. A family where the children honor their parents in their home is said to live with those worthy of offerings dedicated to the gods. So gods and parents are the same level here. Kind of nice, isn't it? So this is the sutta, and this helps us to think about our parents in a different way here. Because normally we don't think about our parents in this way. You don't think about your parents like gods. Anyone here think about their parents like gods? Not so many, right? It's not so huge. Okay, we understand we have to look after our parents, but we don't think of them like gods. So what does this mean, that you are said to live with divinity? Divinity here is Brahma. Yeah, these are the highest kind of gods. And the Brahma gods, what is it that distinguishes them from other gods? And what distinguishes them, what makes you into a Brahma, is that you practice the Brahma viharas. Yeah, this is the divine abidings. These are the Brahma abiding. This is where Brahma abides. And the divine abidings are concerned with things like metta, karuna, mudita, upekkha. So basically this is all about love and compassion and these sort of things. So these Brahma gods are what develop that to a very high degree, so as they get reborn in basically the jhana realms. That's what the Brahma gods are like. So the parents are compared to these Brahma gods. Yeah, and of course the reason is because a parent looks after a child in an extraordinary way. Even bad parents look after the children fairly well, let alone good parents who really look after the children. And no one else in the world will look after you in the way that the parent does. Yeah, the only people in the world who will look after a small child in a way that someone does is a parent. There's like endless patience with their children, endless ability to feel compassion and love towards their children. Doesn't matter how naughty the child is. And sometimes children can be really naughty, do really bad things, end up in prison. Come out of your prison, your mum is there to pick you up. Yeah, that's what mums are like, yeah, especially mums. I think dads too to some extent. Maybe mums probably even more. Mums even more compassionate, but it's amazing. Yeah, always willing to forgive, always willing to let go, always willing to move on. And it's very hard to remember this because life is complicated with our parents. Yeah, I mean, I know my life was very complicated with my parents. Many ups and downs, yeah, good times and not so good times, and all of these things. Yeah, it's complicated. And so we need to remember this, that actually throughout the upbringing, they have been there. They have had this endless patience, always willing to forgive, always willing to move on. No one else in the world will look at that little child and be able to forgive in that way like the parents do. It's kind of extraordinary. When you come out of prison, everyone else thinks you are a criminal and bad. The only person who doesn't think that is your mum, yeah? She still remembers you when you were a cute little child, yeah? She remembers how nice you were, all your good qualities. This is what mums do. And that's why they will always forgive you, because a mum will always remember your good qualities. That's what parents do. That's why they are like Brahma. They remember those things. And so this is our job, is to remember that our parents are like this. Yeah, remember the forgiveness, remember the compassion, remember the love that was there throughout our childhood. It is not always expressed in a way that is easy to see, because of the complications, but it is there behind the scenes. Yeah, and this is what we have to kind of bring to the fore. Yeah, actually, my parents were pretty good. Yeah, wow, they dealt with me. I was a difficult teenager. Still, they kind of they were okay with that. Wow, amazing. Actually, yeah, far better than I, usually think about my parents. And so this is a way of thinking. And when you think like this, it is much easier to pay back the debt of gratitude that you have. So our perception, how we think about our parents, is fundamental to be able for us to be able to care for them and look after them in the way that we should. We think about them, if all we remember are the difficult times, there's no way you're going to be able to happily care for them. Yeah, it's going to be really hard. You're going to push yourself to do it, and it's kind of hard. Yeah, I know that in a country like Malaysia, you have a lot of this idea of filial piety, and you have to look after your parents. Sometimes that can be burdensome, yeah, because the culture says you must do like this, you must do like that. But instead of allowing it to be a burden, if you think about it in the right way, it starts to become something you want to do instead. So thinking of your parents like Brahma, yeah, people who always forgive, and people who always have so much time. The other one here is the idea of the first tutors, Pubbacharya. Pubba is like the prior first, acharya is teacher. It's the first teachers. And sometimes we forget how much we have been taught by our parents. We think that most of what we get taught is in school. No, most of what you get taught is by your parents. They teach you everything you need to know to survive. Yeah, brushing your teeth, combing your hair, having a shower, getting up in the morning, making your bed, all of these basic things in life that are so important to survive. Putting on your clothes, tying your shoelaces, that's really hard when you're a child, tying your shoelaces. That's why these days they have Velcro instead, because tying shoelaces is too difficult. But they teach us all of these simple things in life that are so important to survive. Yeah, our first teachers are our parents. And we forget all the things we have learned from our parents. How to eat, how to hold your knife and fork, yeah. How to stick your fork into the food and then put it in your mouth. That's kind of how it works. And all of these simple little things. So a lot of, just like you have gratitude to any teacher, you have gratitude to your parents. In fact, many of those things that you learn from your parents are probably the most important things. You wouldn't survive without these basic ideas. You couldn't live without them. And so it is fundamental to your life, is the things that you have been taught by your parents. Thank you, parents. Wow. Actually, I should say that to my mom. Thank you for teaching me all of these things. I forgot about that. Next time I talk to my mom, I'll tell her, oh, thank you for teaching me how to use my knife and fork. Actually, I don't use a fork anymore. Anyway, whatever. A family where the children honor their parents like those worthy of offerings dedicated to the gods. I would just say worthy of offerings. Yeah. But sometimes these worthy of offerings are precisely offerings to deities. And so the parents are worthy of something special, worthy of support, worthy of all of these things. So see if you can think about your parents a little bit like this. And if you can, you make the burden less. Because you will automatically feel that you should support them in return. But it is important to find a balance in this life. Don't feel too much obligation in supporting your parents. If it becomes too much obligation, it becomes like a burden. And then it becomes then you're going to lose your temper every time you see them because it feels like a burden. And then it's going to be really hard because of that. So find a nice balance. Don't see your parents too often. If you see them too often, then it's going to be burdensome again. See them the right amount of time. I usually have a chat with my own mother. She's kind of getting very old now, mid-80s, past her mid-80s already. And she loves to talk to me. She wants to talk to me all the time if she could, I think. So I had to say, okay, once every few weeks, once every 3 weeks, something. We have a Zoom meeting together, and we kind of have a Zoom chat. So you set limits as well. It's more important to have quality than quantity. Have quality, then you can really enjoy the company. Too much quantity tends to reduce the quality. And quality is what you want to give your parents. And sometimes parents can blackmail you a little bit, but don't allow yourself to be blackmailed, right? Say, okay, no, this is enough. Once every couple of weeks, or once a week or whatever, we'll see you, but that's sufficient. Otherwise, I will go nuts. You know what it is like. Anyway, so there you are. So this is kind of finding a balance with these things. Be wise about this. Don't allow these things to become a burden because it destroys the whole thing. So let us move on. Divinity is a term for your parents. First tutors is a term for your parents. Worthy of offerings dedicated to the gods is a term for your parents. Worthy of offerings dedicated to the gods is a term for your parents. Gee, amazing. Why is that? Parents are very helpful to their children. They raise them, nurture them, and show them the world. You learn about the world from your parents. You are completely beholden as a child. You are completely dependent on your parents. Without them, you wouldn't be here. They are the ones who look after you. All right, let us move on. So here we have a couple of verses to underline what we have just seen. Parents are said to be divinity, and first tutors, it is said, they are worthy of offerings dedicated to the gods from their children, for they love their offspring. Therefore, a wise person would revere them and honor them with food and drink, clothes and bedding, anointing and bathing, and by washing their feet. Are you washing your parents' feet? Yes? So yeah, really? Wow. Okay, that's cool. So you had taken this from the suttas then? Okay, that's very nice. By washing their feet. I have never washed my mum's feet. I think she would faint if I tried to wash her feet. Because they look after their parents like this in this very life, they are praised by the wise, and they depart to rejoice in heaven. All right. Okay, so now comes another little sutta about your parents. This is a very kind of graphic sutta, so I hope you're ready for this. And mendicants, I say that these two individuals cannot easily be repaid. What two? Mother and father. This is very interesting. How can we repay our parents? Yeah, this is kind of one of those nice questions. And you will see that it is not so easy because you would not have it done enough to repay your mother and father, even if you were to carry your mother around on one shoulder and your father on the other. So are you ready to do that? It's too heavy? Too heavy, okay, fair enough, so you can't do it. Okay, but even if you did it, right, even if it wasn't too heavy, still. And if you lived like this for 100 years, wow, imagine that, yeah, your parents each on one shoulder for 100 years. I talk about burden, that was a real burden. And if you were to anoint, massage, bathe and rub them, and even if they were to defecate and urinate right there. I told you this is quite graphic, yeah? It kind of gets down to the reality of life in a sense. Even if you were to establish your mother and father as supreme monarchs of this great earth, abounding in the 7 treasures, you would still not have done enough to repay them. Why is that? Parents are very helpful to their children. They raise them, nurture them, and show them the world. So you establish your parents as the supreme monarchs of this great earth. This is like the Chakravarti Raja, yeah, the wheel-turning monarch, abounding in the 7 treasures. These are the 7 treasures of the wheel-turning monarch. So that's difficult. It's pretty difficult to do that sort of establishment, so you can't do that. So it doesn't matter really how much you give them of worldly goods. In terms of worldly goods, there is no way you can repay them according to this. That's what the Buddha said, so I guess, that must be something to it. So the question then is it possible to repay them? And those of you who have seen the sutta before, you will know what the answer is. And those of you who have read ahead, you know the answer already, but that takes away my fun if you read too far ahead, because then I can't spring surprises on you, So how do we repay our parents then? Well, as follows. But you have done enough, more than enough, to repay them if you encourage, settle and ground your unfaithful parents in faith. Not unfaithful, like lacking in faith, right? Unfaithful sounds a bit funny. The unethical parents in ethical conduct, stingy parents in generosity, and deluded parents in wisdom. So this is how you should repay your parents, by helping them to kind of come to the Dhamma, basically. This is how you do it. So this is quite hard. Yeah, I don't know if you have tried to get your parents to come to the Dhamma. It's quite difficult. I can tell you my own experience. When I was a young monk, I was really going around saying the Dhamma is the best. Everything else is foolish madness. What? You believe in that? Don't believe in that. The Dhamma is superior. And so I went around telling everyone, how great the Buddha's teaching is. That's what you do when you start out on the Buddhist path, because you are so keen on the Dhamma. And so I would go to my parents and say, listen to this, this is what the Buddha said, don't do that, do this. And my parents would just ignore me, They would say, this young man has gone crazy, we're not going to listen to what he's saying. And they kind of were dismissing me. They thought I had been brainwashed by some kind of crazy sect, some cult. I'd been induced to some kind of cult, and I was going slightly crazy because of that. And so I realized this is not going to work. This is not the right way of kind of getting your parents to come around, but trying to kind of teach them how great the Dhamma is. I've got to live the Dhamma instead. And so I started living the Dhamma. I started trying to do the right thing. So I would come back home and I would kind of help them out in various ways. Even now when I come back home, my mother usually has a list of things that need to be done in her house. So she gives me that list and she says, okay, can you please do this? I said, okay, I'll do that. And so I do this list, and that's kind of nice, And then she's so grateful. I didn't know. I do a tiny little thing, and my mom is just so grateful for the tiniest little thing. I think, wow, amazing. So actually, it's quite nice when that happens. So I started doing the right thing. Speaking kindly to my parents. I had never spoken kindly to my parents before. I was this rebellious teenager like everyone else. And so I started talking kind of said, wow, what's going on? That's my parents were a bit uncertain about this. And I remember one of the kind of turning points. This was after I'd been a monk for about 10 years. It takes about 10 years. It takes a long time. And I remember I was writing an article for the newsletter of the Buddhist Society of Western Australia, or it was maybe an interview that someone asked me, what about your parents? Did they, are they okay with you becoming a monk? And do they understand what you're doing? And I said, they kind of accept what I'm doing, but they don't understand. And then my parents got to read that interview. I can't remember exactly how, they got to read it. And they were not happy with that. We accept it, but we don't understand. And from that point on, they wanted to understand. And so that was kind of a turning point. So after that, things really changed. After that, then I would go back home, visit my parents, and we would do meditation together. They would tell me, okay, give a Dhamma talk to the family. They get the whole family together. I would give a Dhamma talk to the family. That's the most difficult thing, to give a Dhamma talk to your own family, Easy. This is very easy to give, because you are all Buddhists, that's quite easy. Give to a conference with 1,000 people, that's really easy. To your family, wow, that is really hard, There you are, your parents, your mom, your dad, your sister, your brother, all the in-laws, all the nephews and nieces, and you have to give them a Dhamma talk. Wow, that's really scary. That's the most scary thing you can do, But it's also a great privilege, It's a kind of a really great privilege. And so after a while, you can see how this works. You have to kind of show your commitment to the Dhamma. And as you show your commitment to the Dhamma, that you are living what you're preaching, then your parents really change. That's how they come around. And not all parents will come around. Some parents will never be, they will always kind of dismiss you. And one of the greatest translators of Dhamma from Pali into English, Bhikkhu Bodhi, his parents never forgave him for becoming a Buddhist. They will kick him from a Jewish family, and Judaism is very strong family bonds, and you're not really supposed to go out of Judaism. And so they never really forgave him, and so his mother, to her dying day, didn't forgive her son for becoming a Buddhist monk. That's kind of terrible. And he was a nice monk. So. But so that was the parents' fault. They shouldn't have done that. They should allow the son to do what he wants. So you never know how your parents are going to react. But the best way is to live the Dhamma. And if you live the Dhamma in the right way, then there is a chance you will have an opportunity to touch them in a more deep way and bring them to the teachings in a good way. If you're lucky, your parents are already Buddhist. That sort of helps. But otherwise, this is the way forward. Okay, let's do a little bit more, have a short break, and then we'll carry on.
Hi, Ajahn.
Hi.
My question is around inappropriate talk that we discussed earlier before lunch. So I understand from the suttas that it is sometimes inappropriate to speak to certain individuals about, say, Dhamma, when they are not ready or receptive.
Yeah.
Right. At the same time, we are also encouraged to act with good intentions. You know, compassion and care, especially towards our loved ones. Right. So, in practice, this feels like a delicate balance. If we speak, there is a risk that it comes from a subtle ego or desire to teach. Right. But if we remain silent, especially with loved ones like friends and families, it may feel like we are being indifferent or even selfish from other people's point of view, right? Allowing them to continue on a path that may bring them suffering. So how can we skillfully discern when to speak and when to remain silent so that our actions are truly rooted in wisdom and compassion rather than ego and avoidance?
Yeah. Okay. So, you know, one way of speaking is to speak in a way whereby you kind of just make them happy. Yeah. So what is going to make people happy? What kind of speech is that? Well, sometimes you just have a bit of fun together. Crack a few jokes, right? Or whatever it might be. Go to an Ajahn Brahm talk, listen to a few of the jokes and kind of take them back home and kind of tell your family or whatever. Yeah. Sometimes we're going to say something sweet. Sometimes it's just fun just to mess around a little bit, not to be too serious, yeah, just to kind of be a bit silly and joke around a little bit, because often that's how we create connection with people, by being silly. Not too much, not overly silly, but just a little bit. Often we do that at the monastery. You'll be amazing how silly we can be at the monastery, really, really silly sometimes. And that's kind of nice, because it means you don't take things too seriously. It's not coming from the ego, that's for sure, when you're silly. It's coming from just some, playfulness. Be playful with each other, yeah? Playfulness is great, because playful means that you're having a good time together, not taking things too seriously, but nevertheless being together. So don't try to be the kind of person who always talks Dhamma, who always talks these things, who is very serious. Sometimes you have these Buddhists who are super serious, and it's not really nice. Yeah, you don't feel at ease. You can't really relax around them in the right way. So ask yourself, how can you just be kind in a broader way? Make it a gift. Make your speech a gift to the people around you, so that they feel at ease. They can enjoy. They can be relaxed. I can see that with Ajahn Brahm often doesn't want to discuss Dhamma, because I think one of the reasons is because it gets too serious very quickly. And you can't just have a laugh and enjoy together. Sometimes it's nice to enjoy Dhamma, but not all the time. And finding that middle way, I think, is very important. I think this is one of the reasons why he tells a lot of jokes and why he likes to have a good time, is because of that lightheartedness. That is part of the gift of the teaching, that lightheartedness which makes people feel at ease and relaxed. So do that. And then sometimes, if it is the time to speak about Dhamma, then it is the time. And then you do take the time when you're there. And this is why you find a middle way here. Not silent, not just talking Dhamma, but also these other things. Is that what you were asking, or was it something else?
I think what I was referring to is more on like day to day. So it's not about going around preaching Dhamma, but for example, say how I conduct myself is normally I don't really comment about other people's business. I let it be unless an opinion is asked for. But sometimes I notice I am in a situation where people would say that you are selfish because you don't give comment. But for me, I'm just mindful that it's not asked for, right?
Yeah.
So how do you balance that without some people expect you to share your thoughts if you care about them.
Okay.
So that's where I'm coming from, the conflicting part, because to me I recognize it's everyone's individual journey.
Yeah.
It's not I'm also like not a teacher, right? So how do you balance that in reality?
Okay, I see what you mean. Yeah. I sometimes don't worry too much about what other people think. Yeah, just do what you think is right and follow your own heart. Know what you need. And if other people want to judge you, it's their problem, not your problem. However, if they want feedback, you just give positive feedback. Say something nice to them. Yeah, wow, I like the the shirt you're wearing is that's very so nice. Yeah, so beautiful. You are so wonderful to see you today. Here is a hug from me to you. Yeah, or I don't know, whatever. I don't know what works works for you. So just say something nice. There's always things that we can say that are nice, and we don't take all those opportunities when they are there to say nice things or to do nice things. And if you just say a few nice things, it is actually far more important than giving a lot of feedback. And I think after a while they will appreciate that. So look for the good things and say those. And it's very, very helpful for yourself, because if you start looking for the good things, you start seeing them, and you stop seeing the negative things, and all you see is good in other people. And that's really nice. It's like Ajahn Brahm, because I sit almost like next to Ajahn Brahm, so I have to discuss things with him. And sometimes I have to, someone has done something bad, so I have to remind Ajahn Brahm, oh, do you remember this person did this? He said, no, can't remember. He can never remember anything bad. All he can remember are the good things of anyone. And it's kind of extraordinary. And he has this ability. His mind is like he purposefully only remembers the good things in people, and he throws out all the other stuff because it's garbage, it's rubbish, it's waste, so he just chucks it out. And if you start complimenting people on the good things, after a while you become like that, because you're always looking for the good things, and then you say them, so you give a kind of feedback. So see if you can do that, and then I think those people, after a while, they will start appreciating you a lot when you do that. Okay.
Dear Ajahn, is it wrong to tell a dying person? Let's say I have a recent experience of my Tai Chi master.
Yeah.
He was about 85 when he was diagnosed with prostate cancer.
Yeah.
So the children conceal it from him.
The children what?
Say, don't tell him. Don't tell the teacher that he has prostate cancer.
I see.
And then just live out a normal life, and he lived to about 90 years old.
Yeah.
So they felt that if you had told them his cancer, he would probably have a death sentence and it just die off very fast.
Okay.
So is that actually wrong?
Is it wrong?
Because I mean, maybe depending on the age, 85 maybe too old to operate or something.
Right.
So they felt do the normal treatment. Just live well.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I would say it's probably good to tell. I would say normally because for many people it's a wake-up call when you have an illness. Yeah, it changes your attitude a little bit. You remember these are called the Devadutas, the divine messengers, the illness, the old age, and death. And so these Devadutas, we should have an opportunity to meet those messengers. If we don't meet the messengers, how are we going to get anywhere? And so I would say probably normally it's good to say, and then people will have to deal with the realities of life. That can be a spiritual awakening of some sort, and so it's good to do it. But maybe not in all circumstances. Maybe there are some circumstances where it's better to be quiet, especially if they're getting very old maybe, and they don't really, maybe they're not ready for it, or they have a very different view of the world or whatever. So maybe there are some circumstances where it actually is acceptable. But I would say, as a general principle, I would say we should probably mention these things. I think it is helpful for people to remember this, our own mortality, etc. So I'm not going to judge those his children or whatever, but yeah. Is that answer even say anything useful? Yeah. Okay. Good. So good.